Happier politics.
We're the howlers in the South.
Wait, well, okay, come on. The kids have to come forward. Come on, you guys. Okay, who do we have here?
This is my son, Evan.
Hi, Evan. Nice to meet you.
Sorry, barbecue sauce.
No, you're working. You're working. This is all good. If you didn't, I'd be wondering, is he really working? Right?
Well, I wonder
there
that all
you
the
go.
time.
Well, of course.
Sometimes I think he just puts a little sauce on that shit.
Uh-huh. Giving of yourself and everyone meet you. It's great to meet you. You're a gumbo apprentice. These are all local artists? Mostly, yeah. You know when they're having a good day, when they're having a challenging day. It doesn't have to change it, just enhances.
We have 3 of that family working with us.
Come here, let me
Samir,
meet
Zay,
you.
and Justin.
How are you guys doing?
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Bless you. But I want to get this also. Oh my God! What is that cake?
That's Chef Jay's.
I want a slice of that. Caramel is like my favorite. Okay, chocolate and caramel, fantastic. But what are you getting?
Oh, I'm good.
No, you don't want anything sweet. You don't want anything sweet.
Yeah, ginger ale.
Get something sweet.
Well, you talked about that caramel cake.
Yeah. Okay. He's on the treadmill. That's good. I worked out this morning. How you doing?
I felt like I needed to channel my inner Kamala and get on the treadmill and get to work.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. But I'm here with your mom, and we were talking about you, and I just wanted to say hello and thank you for all you're doing. Okay?
No, thank you for all you're doing. It's such an honor to vote for you.
Well, we're in it together.
All my friends are voting for you. I'm up in Wisconsin. We have your back.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you for all the help, and take care of yourself. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for the support.
Thank you.
And your mom right now has tears in her eyes.
I have tears in my eyes. Oh my God.
Okay, I'm gonna give you back to your mom. Take care, Madison. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
Bye, honey. Thank you so much. Make sure she's holding on while she's talking on the treadmill. And being in Savannah, I understand what this means. You guys are doing hard work here. We're doing it together. And so, exactly. We're running together, so. I do bacon. Garlic. I put white vinegar. I do. So I start with, I slice up my garlic. But no, first I chop up the bacon and get all that fat going. Then I put garlic, some chili peppers, and then a lot of water and a little chicken stock. And I let it go for a while before I put the greens in. And then, right, so you get that going and all that flavor. And then I put the greens in for a couple hours. Then I do vinegar. And then I cheat and do a little Tabasco.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, but Tabasco of all, like I like Louisiana hot sauce, but Tabasco has that right amount of vinegar. Yeah. And so that's how I do my greens. Just be on the ground interacting. The future is always worth fighting for. We fight for a future with affordable child care, paid leave, and affordable health care. Generations of Americans before us led the fight for freedom. Now, Savannah, the baton is in our hands. So we who believe in the sacred freedom to vote will finally pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. We who believe in the freedom to live safe from gun violence will finally pass universal background checks and red flag laws. So much is on the line in this election. Georgia, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And
Good evening, Pittsburgh. My name is Shaquila Paye, and I am extremely honored to be here today to help welcome President Obama back to our city. I have been lucky to call Pennsylvania my home my entire life. I grew up in Johnstown, PA, and moved to Pittsburgh as an adult, and I now proudly claim it as my home. I am here on the stage today because so much is on the line in this election. The stakes could not be higher, and right here in Pittsburgh, we are going to decide what kind of future we want for ourselves. Donald Trump wants to take us backwards. Trump, at all. Trump and his Project 2025 agenda would take us into the past, rip away more of our fundamental freedoms, and raise costs for families like yours and mine. Vice President Harris has a very different vision for the future. She wants to take us forward. Listen, I spend a lot of time with the future as a kindergarten teacher at the Urban Academy Charter School of Greater Pittsburgh. I spend every day with a bunch of youngins, and when I think about what kind of world I want my students to grow up in, I think of the future Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz are fighting to build. I think about a future where every single one of my students can make a good life for themselves and get ahead. I want them to be able to get a good education, one day buying a home, and not worrying every night about how they'll pay their bills or buy food for their families. I think of how the little girls I teach deserve to be able to control their own bodies without the government interfering with their decision about when or if they want to start a family. And that's the future that Vice President Harris is fighting for. That's what's at stake in this election. I'll be honest, for a while, politics have felt distant to me. I voted for President Obama in 2008 as a first-time voter, and then again in 2012. If anyone is wondering whether your vote matters, whether your voice matters, let me be very clear, they absolutely do. Just a few votes at every polling place this year could make the difference between Donald Trump forcing his Project 2025 agenda upon us and Vice President Harris taking the oath of office in January and fighting for each and every one of us here. That's why I decided to get off the sidelines this year, and on Tuesday, I renewed my voter registration. If you haven't checked your voter registration, please do it today. You have until October 21st to register to vote and then get out to cast your ballot on Election Day. I am excited to start my voter process again, casting my ballot for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. President Obama has told us, all of us, that we have the power to decide our country's future, and I'm going to do just that. We need to create the kind of change we want to see in this country, and we are going to do that by electing Vice President Harris and Democrats up and down the ballot. It is now my incredible honor to introduce Senator Bob Casey, who has been
No, honey, I'm good. I can have another, but I probably should not. I got somebody at home. It's been a long night here and a long night there, and these long, long legs are damn near everywhere. Hold up now, you.
Hello, Pittsburgh. Wow, what a crowd. I got one question for this crowd. Are you ready to win? Are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? And are you ready to help me win this United States Senate seat? All right. Now, Isn't it great to have President Barack Obama with us tonight? I'm going to introduce him in a moment, but I got a couple things I want to say first. But we're so grateful you're here tonight. You're here tonight because you love our country. That's why you're here tonight. And I can't thank you enough for loving your country enough to be here with us tonight. This is a fight this year about a lot of key issues for families. But I think at the core of this campaign, at the national level and here in Pennsylvania, it's a fight really about two things. The first is rights. The fight for voting rights, women's rights, workers' rights, all on the line. But this is also a fight about working families, about working together to help our working families to lower costs, to fight the fentanyl crisis, and to take care of the most vulnerable among us. Our kids, our seniors, people with disabilities, help our veterans. That's what we do as Democrats. Now, I got something to say about my opponent, just a couple things. My opponent is a former hedge fund CEO. And he told some lies in this campaign. He lied about living in Pennsylvania when he was living in Connecticut. He lied about how he grew up. He said he came from nothing. That's what he said. He had a pretty good upbringing like I did. We were lucky to have strong families and to grow up with a lot of advantages. He shouldn't tell a different story about that. He also lied about creating jobs in Pennsylvania. When he outsourced jobs from Pennsylvania to India and China. He shouldn't lie about that. He also lied. Well, we just get past that. But you know, this is a candidate who didn't vote in Pennsylvania for 15 years. While we were here in Pennsylvania working for the people, working all together like we all were, he was somewhere else. He was up in Connecticut. And you know what he was doing when he was in Connecticut as a hedge fund CEO? He was investing in China, not in Pennsylvania. Hear me out on this. He increased investments in China by 108,000% when he was a CEO. He invested in a company in China that made 90% of the fentanyl. He invested in Chinese oil companies and steel companies. He invested in China's companies making bombers and missiles to help China's military. Now, when he did all that, he was hurting our country and hurting the people of Pennsylvania. That's what he was doing. Boo was right. And you know what he also bet against? When he was making investments, he bet against American steel companies, not betting for American steel companies. I want you to know, he's got some plans if he were to be successful. Here's one of his big plans. His plan is to give big tax breaks for, you guessed it, the billionaires, the people making a lot of money, and the biggest corporations in the world. You know what happens when they do that? They'll put Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security on the chopping block. We're not going to do that in America. We're not going to cut those programs to give billionaires a tax cut. Now, these out-of-state billionaires know that I won't vote for their tax cuts. I've already proven that. I voted against the billionaire tax cuts of 2017. So they're a little mad at me now. They're mad at me that I'm going after them on corporate greed as well. They're pretty damn mad about that. And you know what they're doing? They're spending more than $100 million to defeat me in this race. Well, I got news for those billionaires. I'm going to beat David McCormick, and I'm going to beat those billionaires. Yep. Now, I need you to help me. I need you to help me. Go to bobcasey.com and help us to fight off those billionaires. And we're grateful you're here tonight, because tonight we're here to focus on the future. the future of our Commonwealth and our country. And tonight as well, we're honored tonight to welcome back to the city of Pittsburgh someone who's been here a lot, who campaigned here when he ran for president the first time, the second time, and helping candidates after that. You remember what he did. There's a lot we could list here, but I'll just make it very brief. You know what he did to lead our country in passing the Affordable Care Act, right? And I not only voted for that legislation, I fought off all the attempts to gut it and to repeal it. But that bill, here's what that bill meant to the people of Pennsylvania. There are 1.4 million Pennsylvanians who have health care solely because of the Affordable Care Act. So, and we know that so many Pennsylvanians, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them, have coverage for pre-existing conditions because of that Affordable Care Act. So tonight, as we come here tonight to talk about winning these campaigns for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz all the way down the ballot, we're also here to welcome back to Pittsburgh and to thank him for his work for delivering for the people of Pennsylvania when he was president, the 44th president of the United States, Barack Obama.
Less you find out as you go. I knew much more then than I do now. Me on a hard day.
Hello, Pittsburgh! Are you fired up? Are you ready to go? It is good to be back in Pennsylvania. It is good to be back in Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh. You know, I love the people of Pittsburgh. I love the food in Pittsburgh. I don't usually do this, but this is a little bit of a Yelp rating. Just had some of Pamela's pancakes. I first had those like 10, 15 years ago when I was running, and I was all like, I need some of those pancakes this time out. And even though I'm from Chicago, some of you may know, when I was a kid, I was a Steelers fan. So, and watching the Steelers this season, it seems I'm not the only guy from Chicago who likes being in Pittsburgh, because so far Justin Fields is doing pretty good. Now, before we get started, we have a little bit of work to do here. All right, so I want everybody to be, just settle in. We got some work to do. Before we get started, I did want to say that we are, heartbroken about the loss of life in Florida, North Carolina, states across the Southwest. We are thinking about people, families whose lives have been upended by the storms over the last couple of weeks. I could not be more grateful for the first responders and FEMA professionals who have put themselves in harm's way to try and help. It's times like this when you realize having honest, competent, leadership in government really matters. It makes a difference. And today I'm asking you to vote for some of those leaders, including some folks we need working with your outstanding governor, who you just heard from, Governor Josh Shapiro. We need them in Harrisburg. So we need you to vote for your next Auditor General, Malcolm Kenyatta. Your next Attorney General, Eugene DePascale. Your next State Treasurer, Eric McClellan. And my buddy, your outstanding United States Senator Bob Casey. Now, here in Pennsylvania, there are 3 ways to vote. You can vote early, in person, at the county election office, or at a satellite office. You can also vote by mail. And if you need to figure out how to do that, just go to iwillvote.com PA to find a place to vote early or to request a ballot. And of course, you can vote at your polling place on Election Day, November 5th. But if you're at this rally, let's face it, you're probably voting unless you are 12. So you also have to help your friends and family make a plan to vote. And even if you're 12, you can do that. Talk to your mom and dad and aunts and uncles, because together we have a chance to choose a new generation of leadership in this country and start building a better and stronger and fairer and more hopeful America. Now, you've already heard tonight, this election's going to be tight, because there are a lot of Americans who are still struggling out there. They're still striving to make life better for themselves, for their families, and for their kids. And let's face it, as a country, we've been through a lot these last few years. We had a historic pandemic wreaking havoc on communities and businesses. Disruptions from the pandemic then caused prices to spike, and that put a strain on family budgets. And in many ways, it's felt like the aspirations of working people have taken a back seat to the priorities of the rich and the powerful. So I get it, why people are looking to shake things up. I mean, I am the hopey changey guy. So I understand people feeling frustrated and feeling we can do better. What I cannot understand is why anybody would think that Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you, Pennsylvania. I don't understand that. Because there is absolutely no evidence that this man thinks about anybody but himself. I've said it before. Donald Trump is a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. You've got the tweets in all caps, the ranting and the raving about crazy conspiracy theories. You got the 2-hour speeches, word salad, just, it's like Fidel Castro, just on and on. Constant attempts to sell you stuff. Who does that? Selling you gold sneakers and a $100,000 watch and most recently a Trump Bible. He wants you to buy the Word of God, Donald Trump edition. Got his name right there next to Matthew and Luke. I mean, you could not make this stuff up. If you saw it on Saturday Night Live, you'd say, well, no, that's going too far. No, he's doing that. It's crazy. And the reason he does it is because all he cares about is his ego and his money and his status. He's not thinking about you. Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than a means to an end. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his country club buddies. Doesn't care if he costs more women their reproductive freedoms because it won't make a difference in his life. Do not boo. Vote. They can't hear your boos, but they can hear your votes. Most of all, Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them, between the quote-unquote real Americans who support him and the outsiders who don't. Because having people divided and angry, he figures boosts his chances of being elected. And he doesn't care who gets hurt. I mean, think about it. Just the other day, we learned that on January 6th, a couple years ago, Donald Trump was told that Mike Pence was in the Capitol about 40 feet from an angry mob chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And his response was, quote, "So what? Don't boo." If Donald Trump does not care that a mob might attack his own vice president, do you think he cares about you? Pennsylvania, we do not need 4 more years of that. We don't need 4 more years of arrogance and bumbling and bluster and division. America's ready to turn the page. We are ready for a better story, one that helps us work together instead of turning against each other. Pennsylvania, we're ready for a President Kamala Harris. And the good news is Kamala Harris is ready to do the job. This is a leader who has spent her life fighting on behalf of people who need a voice and a champion. Somebody who was raised in the middle class, who worked a summer job at McDonald's while she earned a degree, who believes in the values that built this country. Somebody who has served with distinction in every office that she has ever held. I think we probably had a fainting spell back there. So let's make space for the emergency folks. This happens sometimes. Everybody bend their knees a little bit. You've been standing for a while. You can dance if you want. I just suggested bend your knees. But she'll be okay. Kamala is as prepared for the job as any nominee for president has ever been. That's who Kamala is. And in the White House, she will have an outstanding partner in Governor Tim Walz. Tim is a veteran. He is a teacher. He's a coach. He's a hunter. He's been a great governor working with Democrats and Republicans to get stuff done. He can also take a vintage truck apart and put it back together again. You think Donald Trump can do that? For that matter, do you think Donald Trump has ever changed a tire in his life? I'm just trying to picture it. No. The point is, if you elect Kamala and Tim, they won't be focused on their problems, they'll be focused on yours. They understand that too many folks here in Pennsylvania and across the country are struggling to pay the bills. Even though wages are steadily growing and inflation is finally slowing, the price of everything from health care to housing to groceries, it's still too high. And that takes a real bite out of paychecks. It hurts. So the question is, who's really going to do something about it? That's what you should be asking yourself. Now, Donald Trump's plan is to do what he did last time, which was give another massive tax cut to billionaires and big corporations. And then, don't boo, I'm going to break you of this habit. And the reason some people think, well, I don't know, I remember that economy when he first came in being pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good, because it was my economy. We had 75 straight months of job growth that I handed over to him. It wasn't something he did. I had spent 8 years cleaning up the mess that the Republicans had left me the last time. So just in case everybody has a hazy memory, he didn't do nothing except those big tax cuts. His other big economic plan now is to slap tariffs on everything, from food to TVs. Now, understand what tariffs are. Anything that's coming from that's made elsewhere and comes here, you slap extra money on top of it. And if other countries are cheating, in some cases, it makes sense because you want to have a fair playing field. But what he's proposing is basically a Trump sales tax that could cost the average family almost $4,000 a year. So if you're concerned about higher prices, that is not the way to get lower prices. That's going to come out of your pockets. You think prices are high now? Donald Trump's message basically is, you ain't seen nothing yet. All right, so that's, as far as you can tell, that's his plan, right? Because it's not written down anywhere. When it comes to health care, you heard it in the debate. Donald Trump's got one answer: ending the Affordable Care Act that 45 million people rely on. The other day, his running mate, J.D. Vance, you got to vote. The other day, his running mate had the nerve to say, Donald Trump salvaged the Affordable Care Act. I mean, Donald Trump spent his entire presidency trying to tear it down. And by the way, he couldn't even do that right. And now, 8 years after he was elected, when he was asked about what he was going to do, he says he's got concepts of a plan for how he'd replace it. Now, I want you all to think about this for a second. Let's say your boss gives you an assignment, a project. He says, I need this on Friday. And Friday comes around and he says, so, did you finish that project I asked for? And you say, well, I actually haven't started, but I have a concept of a plan. Or you could try it at home. Honey, did you do the dishes? I have a concept of a plan to do the dishes. How's that going to go over? If it wouldn't work for you, why in the heck should it work for the President of the United States? But the good news is, Kamala Harris, she doesn't have concepts for a plan. She has an actual plan to make your life better. To bring down the cost of things like groceries. She'll go after corporations that are jacking up prices. Just like she went after big banks and for-profit colleges when she was an attorney general in California. And believe me, when she does, nobody's going to want to stand in her way. I remember after the home mortgage crisis, Kamala pushed me and my administration harder than any other attorney general in the country to make sure homeowners got a fair settlement. It did not matter that she was pushing a Democratic administration. She was not going to let anybody stop her from winning as much relief as possible for the families who deserved it. And because of the work she did, those families got billions more than they would have otherwise got. That's the kind of president Kamala Harris will be. To lower housing costs, Kamala will cut red tape and work with governors like Josh Shapiro, as well as the private sector, to build 3 million new homes. And she'll give first-time home buyers up to $25,000 to help with the down payment. Plans, concrete plans. And for a lot of folks, that could be the difference between watching their dreams pass them by or finally owning a place of their own. To lower health care costs, Kamala already worked with Joe Biden to take on the drug companies and bring down the cost of insulin and hearing aids and more than 50 prescription drugs. And as president, she will never stop working to limit out-of-pocket costs and protect your care. That's who Kamala is. She's got a track record of doing it. And here's a big one. Instead of giving more tax breaks to billionaires and raising prices on working families, Kamala will give a tax cut to 100 million middle class and working people here in America. So, if you're a new parent, you could qualify for a $6,000 tax credit during the first year of your child's life. Because I don't have to tell a lot of you, raising kids is hard. And she wants to make it easier to afford stuff like a crib or a car seat or diapers. I remember buying diapers. I remember the first time I went in the store right after Malia was born. I was like, what? That's how much diapers cost? I remember changing diapers. You think Donald Trump ever changed a diaper? Yeah. I almost said that, but I decided I shouldn't say it. If you're starting a small business, Kamala Harris will give you a $50,000 tax credit to help you get it off the ground. That's who Kamala Harris is. That's what she stands for. So with Kamala, you've got actual plans. Trump, concepts of a plan. Now, if you challenge Trump to elaborate and enumerate his concepts, he will fall back on one answer. J.D. Vance does the same thing. Doesn't matter what the issue is, housing, health care, education, paying the bills. Their only answer is to blame immigrants. They want you to believe that if you let Donald Trump round up whoever he wants, by the way, and ship them out, all your problems will be solved. Now, we've got real issues at the border. We are a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. We have to make sure it's fair. There are communities at the border that can be overrun. We've got to actually solve a problem. But when I hear Donald Trump talking, I've got one question. As I recall, Donald Trump was president for 4 years. And if rounding up and deporting millions of desperate people and building the beautiful wall, and didn't matter whether some of those folks you rounded up were women and children, if that's the answer to everything, well, why didn't you solve the problem? Why were the number of immigrants basically the same when you left office as when you took office? I'll tell you why. Because he didn't have a real plan. He had talking points. He had concepts of a plan. And the plan was mean and ugly. And it was designed to enhance his politics and make people angry, not to solve the problem. You know what would actually help bring order to the border and fix our immigration system? The bipartisan deal that Kamala Harris supported, even though it was written by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress, the same bill that Donald Trump tanked on purpose because he thinks fear-mongering is how he's going to win this election. He told Republicans, even the ones who had originally supported, don't vote for it, because he doesn't want the problem solved. We don't need a president who will make problems worse just to make his own political circumstances better. We need a president who actually cares about solving problems and making your life better, and that's what Kamala Harris will do. And to help her do it, she will need a Senate full of serious public servants like Bob Casey. I'm going to talk about this man just for a second. I've known Bob for almost 20 years. I've watched his daughters grow up. I know his brothers and cousins, and let me tell you, there are a lot of brothers and cousins. And I can tell you that no one is more humble and more honest and more rooted in his community and has more integrity than Bob Casey. You know, in Washington, folks make a distinction between work horses and show horses. And Bob Casey, he's not a show pony. All the guy cares about is doing the job and looking after you, the people he was elected to serve. That's the kind of person we need to send back to Washington. That's the kind of person who's going to help Kamala get stuff done. Folks who share our values and will do what they can to move this country forward rather than backward. That's who Bob Casey is. Now, one of those values is freedom. And during election time, there are a lot of flags and there's a lot of talk about freedom. So let me talk about that just for a second. because I don't think we've ever had an election with candidates who understand freedom more differently. For Donald Trump and his cronies, freedom means that the powerful can do whatever they please. Fire workers for trying to organize a union, dodge paying their fair share of taxes, try to throw out your votes when they lose an election, control what women can and can't do with their bodies. In other words, for Trump, freedom is getting away with stuff. It's like he said in the middle of the pandemic, I don't take any responsibility at all. People were dying. I don't take any responsibility at all. Not sure any other president has ever uttered that statement. We have a broader idea of freedom. We believe in the freedom to provide for our families if we're willing to work. The freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and send our kids to school without worrying if they come home. We believe that true freedom gives each of us the right to make decisions about our own life, how we worship, who we marry, what our family looks like. And real freedom also means that we're going to disagree on how each of us should live our lives. And we have to respect other people's views on these issues. You know, I've always said there are good people of conscience on both sides of the abortion divide. I respect anyone whose faith tells them that it isn't something they support. But if we believe in freedom, then we should at least agree that such a deeply personal decision should be made by the woman whose body is involved and not by politicians. And it has been fascinating to watch Donald Trump just tie himself into a pretzel on this issue. I mean, when he ran for president the first time, he said he would support punishing women who got an abortion. That's what he said. Thank you. Now, well, a couple weeks ago, what did he say? He said, "Don't worry, women, I'll be your protector. I'll tell you how he protected you." He handpicked 3 of the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe versus Wade, went out there and bragged about it. And now there are Trump abortion bans in 20 states, many of them with no exception for rape or incest. And when he's asked about it, he says, well, everybody wanted it this way. Really? He thinks women want to have to drive hundreds of miles to find a doctor who can help them? Does he think doctors want to choose between letting a woman die or going to jail for giving her the life-saving care that she needs? That is not something people chose. Now, Donald Trump may be confused about that issue, but let's not be confused. Let's be clear about what's at stake here. If you send Bob Casey back to the Senate, he'll vote to restore reproductive freedom that women had for nearly 50 years. And if Congress passes that bill, Kamala Harris will sign it into law. Because they understand that freedom is about being able to make the right choice for ourselves and our families. It's about recognizing that other people have the freedom to make their own choices, even if they're different from ours. And it's an example of how, at the end of the day, this election isn't just about policies. It's about values. It's about who we are and how we treat each other. And the example we want to set for our children and for their children. And it's about character. You know, some of you know that when I was growing up, I didn't have a father in the house. But I did have plenty of people around me. Stepfather, grandparents, teachers, coaches, and most of all my mom, who taught me the difference between right and wrong, who showed me what it meant to have integrity and to be honest and to be responsible and to work hard and to treat other people like we wanted them to treat us. And I had a bunch of role models out there who helped raise me to become a man, and I made mistakes, and sometimes I didn't live up to those values that had been taught the way I should have, and I was checked and I was corrected, and I internalized those values, and I tried to live up to them. And I suspect most of you grew up the same way. And you know, that process of trying to live out your best self, trying to live out your values, that doesn't stop after the age of 20 or 21. It keeps going, and as I got older, I continued to benefit from friends like Bob Casey and Josh Shapiro and others who would reinforce those values and who I didn't want to disappoint. And obviously my wife and my daughters, you know, who I want to make sure, Malia and Sasha are watching. I want to make sure that I don't disappoint them, and that I'm passing on these values to them. You know, and here in Pittsburgh, I'm thinking about another example. Somebody who was a dear friend of mine who's passed away now, Dan Rooney, who, you know, here was a guy who won 6 Super Bowls, 8 AFC championships, had enormous wealth and power. But I remember walking around, I guess it was Heinz Field by that time. I'm old enough to remember Three Rivers Stadium. Now I know it's something else. But Dan knew the name of every single person in the Steelers organization. You know, we'd pass by a custodian and he'd say, "Hey, Jimmy, how you doing? How's the family?" All the front office staff, he cared about them. He used his influence to get more black and brown head coaches hired in the NFL. He gave back to his community. He was known for his integrity. He helped support the peace process in Northern Ireland, became my ambassador to Ireland, and continued to help encourage people who were so far apart to come together. He had character. That's what I think about so much these days, because it's so different from what we see out of the Republican nominee. And it's been one of the most disturbing aspects of this election season about Trump's rise in politics, is how we seem to have set aside the values that people like Dan stood for and Bob stood for and that I was taught, and those didn't used to be Republican Democratic values. I mean, it used to be we'd have arguments about tax policy or foreign policy, but we didn't have arguments about whether you should tell the truth or not. We didn't make excuses for people who just violated basic norms of treating people fairly and with respect. I mean, just last week, I talked about this. We had one of the deadliest hurricanes in American history. The beautiful town of Asheville, North Carolina, one of my favorite places in the country. Spent time there, amazing people, devastated, hundreds of people killed. And President Biden and Vice President Harris were down there meeting with local officials and comforting families, asking how they could help. And Donald Trump at a rally just started making up stories about the Biden administration withholding aid from Republican areas and siphoning off aid to give to undocumented immigrants. Just made the stuff up. Everybody knew it wasn't true. Even local Republicans said it was not true. And now the people of Florida are dealing with another devastating storm. And I want you to watch what happens over the next few days, just like the last time. You're going to have leaders who try to help, and then you have a guy who will just lie about it to score political points, and this has consequences. Because people are afraid, and they've lost everything, and now they're trying to figure out, how do I apply for help? And some of them may be discouraged from getting the help they need. The idea of intentionally trying to deceive people in their most desperate and vulnerable moments. And my question is, when did that become okay? I'm not looking for applause right now. I want to ask Republicans out there, people who are conservative, who didn't vote for me, who didn't agree with me. I had friends who disagreed with me on every issue. When did that become okay? Why would we go along with that? I mean, if your coworkers acted like that, they wouldn't be your coworkers very long. If you're in business and somebody you're doing business with just outright lies and manipulates, you stop doing business with them. Even if you had a family member who acted like that, you might still love them, but you tell them you got a problem. And you wouldn't put them in charge of anything. And yet, when Donald Trump lies or cheats or shows utter disregard for our Constitution, when he calls POWs losers or fellow citizens vermin, people make excuses for it. They think it's okay. They think, well, at least he's owning the libs. He's really sticking it to them. It's okay as long as our side wins. And by the way, I'm sorry, gentlemen, I've noticed this especially with some men who seem to think Trump's behavior, the bullying and the putting people down, is a sign of strength. And I am here to tell you that is not what real strength is. It never has been. Real strength is about working hard and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength is about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves. That is what we should want for our daughters and for our sons, and that is what I want to see in a president of the United States of America. And the good news is that you have candidates to vote for in this election that demonstrate that kind of character, who know what real strength looks like, who will set a good example and do the right thing and leave this country better than they found it. So, Pennsylvania, that is the choice in this election. It's not just about policies that are on the ballot. It is about values, and it is about character. So whether this election is making you feel excited or scared or hopeful or frustrated or anything in between, do not just sit back and hope for the best. Get off your couch and vote. Put down your phone and vote. Grab your friends and family and vote. Vote for Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States. Vote for Tim Walz as the next vice president of the United States. Vote for Bob Casey and this whole incredible Pennsylvania Democratic ticket. Help your friends and family members and neighbors and co-workers do the same, because if enough of us make our voices heard, we will leave no doubt about the election outcome. We'll leave no doubt about who we are and what America stands for. And together we'll keep building a country that's more fair and more equal and more just and more free. That is our task. That is our responsibility. Let's go do it. Thank you, Pittsburgh. Thank you, Pennsylvania. Let's go vote.
And thank you so much for joining us this evening for our Out for Harris national organizing call with Governor Tim Walz. My name is Sam Allman, and I am Team Harris Walz's National LGBTQ+ Engagement Director. Y'all, we are just 26 days away from Election Day. And tonight, on the eve of National Coming Out Day, you're going to hear so many reasons why you should vote for Vice President Harris and Governor Walz on November 5th. But more importantly, you're going to find out how you can get plugged in and help us ensure they win this campaign and election. We know this election will come down to a few voters in our battleground states, which is why we are building an operation to talk to as many voters as possible where it counts. Because when LGBTQ voters turn out, we win. And let's be real, we're the underdogs in this campaign. And we are in a fight between two choices that could not be more clear for the future of this country. On one hand, we have Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz, who are fighting for our freedoms, who will build an opportunity economy that will lower costs, grow and expand the middle class, who want to build a country where we are all free to be our true, authentic selves. And speaking of that, with tomorrow, we celebrate our shared experiences as a community on National Coming Out Day. Those freedoms could not be more important or at the forefront of our thoughts. And on the other hand, we have Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, who have made clear in their Project 2025 agenda exactly what they would do if they were elected. They would take away our freedoms, strip us of our hard-won rights as LGBTQ+ people, and build an economy that will only serve massive corporations and their special interests. But as someone we know says, when we fight, we win. So we're excited for the program we have tonight, And I'm excited to introduce our first guest now, the host and executive producer of the Real Housewives franchise and Bravo's late night talk show host, Watch What Happens Live. He is the first openly gay man to host a late night talk show and knows something about standing out and proud. Please welcome Andy Cohen. Andy, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. I'm pumped up. I'm motivated, and I'm really happy to be here with you guys to talk just for a couple minutes about this choice, which is so simple. We have two honorable people who are committed to public service and making the country better. And we have a scumbag and a liar and a convicted felon who is committed to making his own life better. This night is about our community, the LGBTQ plus community. So I want to quickly focus on the fundamental freedoms in our community that are at stake. Vice President Harris and Governor Walz will always defend the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. Donald Trump is running to rip our freedoms away and openly attacking our rights. With Harris and Walz, we have two real allies. In 2004, Vice President Harris officiated some of the nation's first same-sex marriages, which I didn't know. And as Attorney General, she refused to defend California's anti-marriage equality statewide referendum. As district attorney, she led on fighting hate crimes, paving the way to end the so-called gay and transgender panic defense. And as U.S. Senator, she championed the Equality Act. As VP, she's worked alongside the president to pass the landmark Respect for Marriage Act, end Trump's ban on transgender Americans serving in the military, end the disgraceful practice of banning gay and bisexual men from donating blood, which has been especially near and dear to my heart. It took them to overturn that, and that's a huge deal, and passed historic executive orders to protect our community from discrimination, from healthcare to housing, education, employment, banking, and the criminal justice system. Governor Walz has been a vocal advocate for us. As governor, he banned conversion therapy, which is incredible, and he protected access to healthcare for our community. And as a high school teacher and football coach in the 90s, he was proud to be the faculty sponsor for the school's first gay-straight alliance. That is an ally, that is a hero, and that is someone who I would be proud to support on Election Day. These two are going to fight to pass the Equality Act to enshrine anti-discrimination protections for our community in healthcare, housing, education, and more into law. I don't have to tell you the stark contrast of the idiot and his MAGA losers who continue to demonize and attack us and our families. Guys, the choice is simple. We know what we have to do. Get people to the polls, knock on doors. It's under a month that we have. Let's all do our part. Find some Trump voters and change their minds. It is impossible to me that this race could be so close, but here we are. And in 30 days, we don't want to be wondering if there's something that we could have done. Let's do our part. And thanks for having me, everybody.
Thank you so much, Andy. We appreciate you joining this evening, and he's right, and you're going to hear it over and over again tonight. We need you to get involved. This race is close, and it's going to take you talking to voters to ensure that we win. It's going to take you making sure that your friends and family are getting out to the polls. So please sign up to Phone Bank at the link above. You can also find out how to get plugged in by texting LGBTQ to 30330 right now to find out more. And our next guest certainly knows something about getting involved and has been putting in the work all over this country, campaigning in battleground states as one of our campaign co-chairs. And as a proud member of the LGBTQ plus community, he has fought hard for our rights and equality in the halls of Congress. Please welcome Congressman Robert Garcia.
Hey, everyone. I'm really happy to join all of you in between a bunch of events. But first, thank you for the introduction. I'm happy to join you guys. Governor Walz being on this call is amazing. And all the organizers, HRC, the different leaders, thank you. This is such an important time for our community to get out and support the vice president and the governor and make sure that we lead the most pro-LGBTQ plus administration in history. We know that Biden-Harris has been incredible for our community, but there's so much more work to do. And I just want to share with you all, I remember when Kamala Harris was a DA in San Francisco, one of the first people to marry same-sex couples in the country that started the modern gay rights movement around marriage. And so I got to tell you, we've been out campaigning, whether it's been in Nevada, in Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, all over the country, and people are fired up. And our community understands the stakes. It's between Project 2025, Donald Trump, someone that wants to take away our rights and move us backwards, or someone that's going to move us forward. And not just that, she's going to make history, be the first woman president, the first, of course, black woman, Southeast Asian woman, but more importantly, a qualified and incredible leader that's going to take our community to that next step. Thank you for making the calls, for helping raise money, for organizing this event, but also so many other events that have happened. I want to thank the Out for Harris Walz team, Sam, the whole team. You guys have been just incredible in the work. We have a lot of work to do, less than 30 days, but we're fired up and we're going to win. So happy to be with you guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Congressman Garcia. We are so grateful for your leadership and all the work you are doing across the country to mobilize voters. I just came from one of our events, our 10 Days of Action launch event in Philadelphia with Mrs. Walz, where she reminded us we have to do the work that's in front of us. And Representative Garcia, you have been doing that critical work that's in front of us, and we need all of you at home to do the same. So please, if you're joining from the website, please click on one of the buttons below or the notifications that you're seeing at the top to find out ways to sign up and get involved, or text LGBTQ plus to 30330 to find out more about how you can make phone calls, knock on doors, and start talking to voters. Now on with the show, and speaking of show business, we are so excited to welcome our next guest, a star from Broadway that you may know from his role on Modern Family, Jesse Tyler Ferguson.
Hi, it's Jesse Tyler Ferguson coming to you from my parked car to wish you all a very happy National Coming Out Day. I am going to be turning 49 this month. So I've been out for a very long time, but when I was growing up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, as a closeted kid, I didn't feel a lot of support. I didn't have a lot of people I could look up to. I didn't have a lot of leaders who I had no leaders who I felt like had my back. But that's different now, and this is what's so exciting. Harris and Walz have the backs of the LGBTQ community. Okay, it's really, really exciting. It's really important. So I actually remember when Kamala made that phone call to demand that same-sex marriages happen immediately in California, so that marriages like my 11-year marriage to my husband, Justin Makita, could be recognized. They have our backs. They're working for us. I'm so glad they're here now. I wish they were here back in 1975 when I was a kid, but we need to now have their backs. Okay, we need to text, we need to email, we need to yell our support from the mountaintops. This election is so important. So do everything you can to support the next president and vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Happy National Coming Out Day.
Thank you, Jesse. I can't wait to celebrate National Coming Out Day with you tomorrow. And I'd be remiss to not mention one of the ways folks can leave it all out on the field and do everything they can is by joining us on Monday, October 14th from 12 to 6 p.m. for our Broadway for Harris Dial-a-thon and rally streamed live from New York City. We are so proud to have so many communities coming together, getting organized to elect leaders like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And we promise you, and you should please join us on October 14th for a night you will not forget, and a day where we will make 1 million phone calls in support of this campaign. So please click on the links below if you're joining from the website, or text LGBTQ to 30330 to find out how you can sign up for the dial-a-thon or many other opportunities that we have for you to volunteer with this campaign. And now it is my privilege to introduce someone who does know something about showing up for our community. And as the first Black queer woman to run the Human Rights Campaign, she also knows a thing or two about making history. Please welcome my friend and comrade in this fight, HRC President Kelly Robinson.
Hello, Alfred Harris. It's good being here with y'all, joining from all across this great nation. I'm Kelly Robinson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm especially proud to be here with you tonight on the line with our next Vice President of the United States of America, Governor Tim Walz, y'all. Yes. Now, let me tell you, it is getting real out here, y'all. There are just 24 days left, 24 days until November 5th. In many states, early voting has already begun. Time isn't moving any slower, but the stakes also could not be higher for our community. They could not be higher for our country as we think about what's ahead. All you have to do is turn the news on to see that our opponents are power mad. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they want to destroy our democracy. They want to dismantle our freedoms, to demonize our communities, and they are willing to beg, borrow, and steal to grab more power. Look at these past few years. Just look at what they've been up to as they try to claw their way back to the White House. We've seen extremists in state houses that have introduced hundreds of bills that threaten our rights and our freedoms. We've seen extremists in Congress blocking bills to protect fundamental rights, extremists on the Supreme Court taking away our hard-won rights. This is not a coincidence. This, my friends, is a conspiracy to divide our nation and to destroy our democracy. And if they win in this November, if these extremists take the House and the Senate, if they reclaim the White House, they won't just attack us, they will try to erase us. So yes, the stakes are high this year. This election will determine our safety and our security, our rights and our freedom, our democracy for years to come. But with our allies in the House and Senate, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are ready to protect our freedoms, to strengthen our democracy, to expand opportunity for every person in this nation. They, my friends, will lead us forward because we are not going back. Come on, say it at home. Listen, while more and more Americans are joining in the joy of the Harris-Walz campaign, we've also got to be real. The opposition still has a lot of support. Now, I'm not one to ride the roller coaster, but this is close, y'all. In so many races, we are the underdog. But America, we are here, we are queer, and when we show up, we know that equality wins. Y'all, there are 75 million equality voters in this country who prioritize LGBTQ plus issues at the ballot box. 75 million. That's more than the number of registered voters in every battleground state combined. Look, when we show up, we win. We can decide the future of this nation. We just have to show up. Because this election, it's not just about sets of candidates. This election is about two different visions for America. It's a decision that's going to impact generations to come, our kids, our grandkids. We can have state houses that demonize trans kids. Or we can have schools that support and welcome those kids. It depends on us showing up. We can have a Congress that continues to attack pregnant people, or a Congress that codifies Roe v. Wade into law. We just have to show up, y'all. We can have a 34-time felony convict wannabe white nationalist dictator, or we can have a White House that looks like America and a president that fights for all of us. We just got to show up. So look, I'm going to close with this. These past few months, the vibe of our nation has shifted. For the first time in a long time, it feels like we have a chance to turn the page on all this division and divisiveness, all this chaos and confusion. For the first time in a long time, we feel hope. We feel joy. For the first time in a long time, we feel proud and we feel patriotic. For the first time in a long, long time, we have remembered who we are as Americans. We are a nation of immigrants and innovators, of dreamers and freedom fighters. And when it comes to progress, we don't play around. Y'all, we put a man on the moon, and by God, we will put a woman in the White House too. We will put a champion for equality in the White House too, because that's what we do in the United States of America. So yes, the time is short, and yes, the stakes are high, but America, if we show up, if we put in the work, if we believe with all of our hearts, we will win. So let's fight for freedom without exception. Let's fight for equality without exception. Let's fight for joy. Somebody say joy. Yes, without exception, because when we fight, we win every time.
Thank you, Kelly. We are so proud to have you as a partner and a joyful warrior with us in this fight. And we are excited to launch today our 10 days of action in partnership with the Out for Harris Coalition and Human Rights Campaign, having and holding over 170 events and counting in our battleground states that will get thousands of volunteers plugged in to do the work of talking to voters that we know is critical for us to win and elect Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. And you can get involved as well. We need you at home. We need your help. We need you to sign up to volunteer. Please click one of the links below if you're joining on the website, or please text LGBTQ to 30330 to find out more about how you can volunteer as well. But y'all, we're not going to wait anymore. It's time for the main event. We are about to hear from the next Vice President of the United States. But before we do, we have a very special guest to introduce the governor, someone who knew him as coach before congressman or governor, someone who's an LGBTQ organizer and activist in his own right. Please welcome Jacob Riton.
Thank you, Sam, for the opportunity to be with you tonight. I was a student at Mankato West High School from 1996 to 2000, and I'm gay. And my journey to coming out at Mankato West High School started in Gwen Walz's classroom. The 90s was not an easy time to be a gay high school student in America. Mrs. Walz was my English literature teacher, and during my sophomore year of high school, on the very first day of class, she started class by saying that her classroom was a safe place for gay and lesbian students. I was stunned. I had never heard a teacher talk positively about gay issues from the front of the classroom. My heart was literally beating out of my chest, and I thought to myself, does she know that I'm gay? A year later, when I decided to come out, the third person and the first adult that I told I was gay was Gwen Walz. After coming out to Mrs. Walz, she shared stories with me about how her and Mr. Walz had been supportive of other gay students that they had when they were teachers in Nebraska. Knowing that I had the support of Mr. and Mrs. Walz gave me the confidence to come out to everyone. And eventually, in 1999, it inspired me to start the school's first gay-straight alliance at Mankato West High School. Mr. Walz agreed to be the club's faculty advisor. 1999 just happened to be the same year that the Scarlets won the state championship in football. It meant a lot to have the football coach serve as an advisor to the school's first LGBT organization. And being the faculty advisor to the Gay Straight Alliance was not without controversy, but it is in Mr. Walz's DNA to support students and to model values of respect and inclusivity for all students. When he first decided to run for Congress, my mother approached him and she said, Tim, we know how difficult it is in southern Minnesota for gay and lesbian issues, and you don't have to be for gay marriage on our account. But Mr. Walz's response was simple. I need to look my gay students in the eye. I'm for gay marriage. In Congress, Mr. Walz's support for LGBT issues continued. He was a leading voice in supporting the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Hate Crime Prevention Act and deal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. In doing so, he helped pass the first two pieces of legislation our country ever passed in support of LGBT equality. Here in Minnesota, as governor, Mr. Walz's support for our community has continued in passing legislation that has banned conversion therapy and protecting transgender youth. Mr. Walz was there for me in the 90s, and he's been there for our community at every turn, as a teacher, as a candidate, as a congressman, and as a governor. Now it's our time and our turn to be there for him, and I hope that we can do everything we possibly can in these next 30 days to show up for him as he has shown up for us. Thank you.
Wow, Jake. Well, good evening, everyone. You just heard from what started out as my student, but one of my dearest friends now, Jake Rayton, a true champion over the years. Thank you all. Happy National Coming Out Day to all of you, and thank you to all the speakers tonight. Every time I hear Kelly Robinson, I'm ready to go get to work. President Robinson is unbelievable. And of course, the work that HRC does every day protects lives and makes things better for all of us. To Rep. Garcia, Senator McBride, just grateful, and Jake. Jake was one of the bravest students I ever had, and I think what Jake understood was at the time is standing up and protecting our gay and lesbian students. At the time, he's right. Bullying was just part of the culture, as we know it still is. But that willingness to stand up, and I think it was clear that having an old, white, straight, married football coach kind of sends a message to folks that you treat people the right way, and that we've got allies everywhere. And I'm proud of the work that we were able to do. Proud of the work in Congress. And Jake is right. I remember we ran in 2006 on full marriage equality, and people came up afterwards and said, wow, you won in spite of that position you took. They didn't understand that we won because of the position we took, whether it was the issue of full marriage equality or a woman's right to choose. And taking that to Congress and moving into the state of Minnesota. That's why I'm so excited to be with a true champion in Kamala Harris, someone who's understood these issues. She officiated over some of the very first same-sex marriages in this country. She was there as DA establishing some of the very first hate crimes units. There with the president to make sure the Protection of Marriage Act was in and Respect for Marriage Act got signed. We know that allies in every corner, and we know that action, and we understand what it means to protect the community. And I just have to tell you, just the leadership that has been exhibited by everyone on this call around human rights and the progress we've made. I know it's a bit of a catchphrase, but I'm not going back to the times Jake was talking about when our students were fearful. I'm not going back to a time when bullying was accepted as a part of it, not just from other students. Let's be honest, it came from adults in many ways, and it comes from Donald Trump on a daily basis. So you know what's at stake here. You know who these guys are. They're not even pretending to hide it anymore, and we know what their agenda is. And when you're spending the kind of money they're spending demonizing the transgender community and telling us that's why we should elect them presidents, that is just vile. And I think for all of us, it's time to push these guys into history. It is time to move beyond this. Kamala Harris is the leader that we need right now. When she talks about being the leader and the president for all Americans, she means it. And the progress we've made on all fronts, look, too many people have been out there, and Jake is right. I'm friends with Judy Shepard. And Judy lost her beautiful son, Matthew, on that windswept plains in Wyoming because of bigotry and hatred, the same vile language that Donald Trump is using. And we will stand in the breach every single time. So to all of you on here, thank you. Thank you for making things better for kids and people across this country. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for getting out the vote. We know, look, this thing is going to be close. We're not, that's a reality. This is a divided country. But these issues around freedom and human dignity and protection and choice, all of those things are on the ballot. So let's finish this thing. I've been given my pep talk. We got 26 days, people, all gas, no brakes. And just talk to everyone. Talk to your neighbors. The decency of this country will come through. We need those votes. We need those votes in every state. And I'm just grateful that there's folks that are on this call tonight that understand that. So you can be sure we'll continue to do the right things. We'll continue to push for this. And as President Harris always says, when we fight, we win, and we intend to win. So thank you all.
Oh my gosh, Governor Walz, thank you so much for joining us. It is an honor and a privilege to have you here with us this evening. And I just want to say it is an honor and a privilege to work for you and to work to elect Vice President Harris, who have been such strong allies of our community from the starts of their career to today. And I know definitively, and I hope everyone at home knows, based off all the work that they've done, that you've heard about tonight, and what they will do if they're elected as president and vice president, will only continue to expand freedoms for everyone, ensure that everyone has equality and everyone can stand in their truth and live as their true authentic selves. And ahead of National Coming Out Day, that message does feel so important. So thank you again, Governor Walz. And to speak about people who are doing important work and blazing trails for our community, our next speaker is someone who is very familiar with that. And it is an honor to introduce who is the current state senator of Delaware. But when she wins her election in November, y'all, she's going to be the first trans person ever elected to Congress. Delaware's own Sarah McBride. Sarah, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, Sam. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the work that you are doing, Sam. Thank you to the work that everyone on the Harris Walz campaign are doing. Thank you to everyone who is joining us this evening. It is great to be with family tonight. I'm so grateful to be here, not only as the state senator representing Delaware's 1st State Senate District, not only as the Democratic nominee for Delaware's open congressional seat, the oldest and largest by population congressional seat in the country, but as an out loud and proud supporter of two of our greatest champions and allies, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Look, I'm here like all of you because I know how close this election is, and I know what is at stake on November 5th. All of us know what is at stake on November 5th. If Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are elected to the White House, they will not hesitate one moment to implement their Project 2025 agenda. They will seek to not only turn the clock back to the 1950s, but in so many ways, the 1890s. They will seek to undo our progress and to mandate discrimination against our community and so many communities across the country. They will seek to attack workers' rights, voting rights, women's rights, immigrant rights, and of course, LGBTQ rights. They will seek to undermine the freedom to vote, the freedom to marry, and the freedom to make decisions about our own bodies, whether that's reproductive freedom or critical health care for LGBTQ people. We know what is at risk on November 5th. We know what is at stake, but we are also here because we know, forged in the hardship of our own journeys to coming out, forged in the hardship of a movement that has delivered historic and seemingly impossible change over the last 60 years, we are here because we also know what is possible. We know that it's possible to continue to make progress for the entirety of the LGBTQ community in every corner of this country. We know it's possible to continue to have a federal administration that has our backs, including the backs of some of the most vulnerable but badass members of our community, trans young people. And we know that it is possible that if we elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to the White House, that if we flip the House and elect Hakeem Jeffries the next speaker, if we keep the Senate, we can not only pass the Equality Act through both chambers of Congress, but we can get it to a pro-equality president's desk and have her sign it into law so that we have clear and undeniable protections from discrimination across this country in all areas of life. But we're also here because we know what's possible for us, not just as LGBTQ people, but as Americans. We know that a Harris-Walz administration will bring down costs facing families and workers. We know they will deliver affordable health care for more patients, affordable child care and housing for more families. We know that they can end the scourge of gun violence once and for all, and we know that they can protect reproductive freedom for this country. We know what is possible. And look, I think as close as this election is, over the last several months, we started to feel something. We've started to feel something that maybe we weren't quite feeling in the same way for the last 10 or 15 years. We're starting to feel some hope again. We're starting to feel some joy. And one of my favorite poets is an Irish poet that Delaware's favorite son likes to quote. His name's Seamus Heaney. And in one of his most famous poems, he says, "History says don't hope on this side of the grave. But once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal waves of justice rise up and make hope and history rhyme." And that is our opportunity. That is our responsibility in this election over the next 4 weeks, to spread our hope, to spread our joy, to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to the White House, to flip the U.S. House, to keep the Senate, to elect Democrats up and down the ballot, so that we not only turn the page on the politics of the past, but we together make hope and history rhyme. And in so doing, protect our freedoms and our democracy now and for generations to come. So thank you all very much for having me. Let's go win this thing. Let's make hope and history rhyme, and let's deliver for our community and for all Americans.
Thank you, Senator McBride. It is always a pleasure having you. And I can say, as a resident of Wilmington, Delaware, I am personally so proud to cast my ballot for you as the next congressperson from Delaware. So thank you for joining us. It is wonderful to have you and everyone that we've had join us this evening. You heard it from Governor Walz himself. It's all gas, no brake these next 26 days, y'all. And we need everyone, I mean everyone on the line right now, to sign up to volunteer, because we know the choice in front of us could not be more clear. You've heard that throughout the program tonight. And on one hand, we could have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, champions of equality, who will enshrine reproductive freedom and Roe v. Wade into law, who will fight to build an opportunity economy that works for everyone and lowers costs, or have Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, who are just plain weird, working in the White House to build an economy that works for massive corporations and special interests, who will ban abortion and take away reproductive freedom and do things that we know, as they've outlined in their Project 2025 agenda and their playbook for what comes if they are elected, roll back freedoms and ensure folks have less freedoms than they did in the generation in front of us. So please click, if you're on the website, you have options below you on how you can volunteer and get plugged in. You can go into a battleground state. You can volunteer from one of our phone banks. And if you are online or watching us on social media, please text LGBTQ to 30330 right now to find out how you can volunteer and get plugged into this campaign, y'all. And with that, it is time that we dive into the meat of this evening's call, I believe. And I'd love to welcome on my deputy and partner in crime in this work, who is the Deputy National LGBTQ+ Engagement Director, Cesar Toledo, to walk you through our plan and what we're going to do here in these next 26 days. Cesar, how are you doing this evening? You're calling from Atlanta, right?
Hey. Yes, I'm calling from Atlanta, and I am in a closet in the coordinated office headquarters. So reporting live from a closet for now.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. Let's get down to it. We know we have built out a plan here, and I just, as a part of our 10 days of action, are super, super excited to have, surrogates all over the country. We have many Pride events. We have Our Fest in Philadelphia this weekend. We have Atlanta Pride, where Cesar, I'd love to hear about the Second Gentleman today. How was that? How was his event opening up and launching Pride for Atlanta, one of the biggest prides in this country?
Yes, it was an incredible and warm experience. We were together with over 100 folks from all across the Atlanta region. And we were also had the opportunity to hear from Julia Roberts, right? An icon, someone who we all know and deeply respect. And lastly, I also got to hear from a good friend, Everton Blair, and hear about his national coming out story. And so a lot of good stories were shared today. The enthusiasm is here. We are seeing people motivated and excited and ready to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. The enthusiasm, the hope, the joy, we're experiencing that all on the campaign trail. I think we should just dive right in and start talking through some of these pieces. I think we've got so much work ahead of us. What are some of the there we go. We've got our slides. We're ready to go. If we want to just move on, we are so proud of the Out for Harris Wall program that we've been building together over these last few months. And we have done so much work and come so far, but we know we've got so much more work to do. And excited to talk about what our program is and what the impact of it has been, starting with our strategy and goals. If we want to move on to the next slide for us. We had 3 goals when we started this program. We needed to reactivate the 2020 and 2022 networks and bring in new LGBTQ+ supporters and equality voters into this work. So proud of the work that our good friend Reggie Greer did in 2020 building out an apparatus, and we knew we had to build on that and make sure those folks were getting activated and plugged into this campaign. And we have been doing that work because we have been able to leverage the incredible messaging and agenda and work that was done in the administration led by Vice President Harris and President Biden to expand equality for LGBTQ people, right? Which is goal number 2, leverage that and draw contrast and create and demonstrate, as we've done tonight, just the clear choice we have in front of us between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It just could not be more clear, and particularly on what it would mean for equality and freedom in this country. And then continue to build out our coalition of LGBTQ plus leaders and organizations that are working hand in glove with us to do this work, because we're here to build out coalitions and engage the community and meet them where they are at. And to do that, it was just necessary for us to go to the partners, to go meet LGBTQ people where they organize and are in community together. So with that, we've been mobilizing our LGBTQ power. Onto our next slide, just to run you through some quick numbers. We have made and completed tonight at a phone bank happening right now over 700,000 phone calls into battleground states. We have built and engaged a regular list of 30,000 supporters across the country who are doing this work, and it is growing every day. A few numbers that didn't make the slide that I just think are so important. Kamala Harris, when becoming our nominee on July 21st, has earned the support of over 1,500 state electeds, local electeds, federal electeds, community members, faith leaders, small business owners who are LGBTQ+, and that number continues to grow and grow. We sent more than 800 LGBTQ delegates to the Democratic National Convention, the most ever sent to a convention. And we, starting today, are having over 170 events in our battleground states to ensure thousands of volunteers are getting plugged in directly with our campaign, directly with state parties and state coordinated campaigns to do the work of volunteering and talking to voters. And with that, it takes to our next slide, and we're going to talk a little bit more, I believe, about how we win this thing. Cesar, I'm going to kick it over to you. You want to talk through some of that work for us? How are we going to win? What have we been doing to make sure that we're talking to LGBTQ plus voters?
No, thank you so much, Sam. And I want to also give a quick shout out to our Out for Harris Walz working group members.
Yes, oh, thank
these
you.
grass top leaders who show up every week, who answer our calls, our text messages, our urgent needs every single day. So just quick shout out to all those folks out there on this call and doing the work to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So how we win, right, folks? We've heard why we need to do the work. We heard from Sam some of the big top line numbers of our programming. And so the next slide, just kind of give you some updates here about some of the work that we've been doing. So together we have been building state organizing committees. So across 35 states, these are not battleground states, but like states like California, like Oregon, right? These are states that have self-organized and self-mobilized people from our community and some fierce allies to join us in this fight to do work for the campaign, right? This is, we here, we want to open as many doors as possible, right? No matter where you are, no matter what neighborhood you live in or what zip code you live in, you have a home here with the Out for Harris program. And so thank you to all those folks who have raised their hands and said, yes, I want to start an Out for Harris, Illinois State Committee and organize folks to maybe travel, to Michigan and Wisconsin every weekend. We've seen folks in DC host in-person phone banks, right, twice a week. In Massachusetts, we have folks organizing virtual phone banks. So people across the country have self-organized and mobilized for the campaign, virtually, in person, you name it. And this is all in the purpose of supporting our battleground states. In battleground states, we also have some existing programming where, Sam just mentioned he was in Philly, right, at a Pride event. I'm here in Atlanta supporting the Out for Harris work here in Georgia. So this is how we win. This is one of our great pillars towards our programming. And then next slide. In addition to that, we are phone banking nearly every single day, right? We phone bank Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you name it. We are on the phones with volunteers across the country. And so because of that, that's how we've been able to make over 700,000 phone calls through the Out for Harris program. So we all know there's a lot on the line, and together we got to make sure that we are having opportunities to phone bank from our homes. And so, we have this national distributed organizing program that is volunteer-led, volunteer-powered. So quick shout out to Nick and Mackenzie, who are our co-chairs, who have been leading us and who've been lending a lot of their time to the campaign, and to all the other folks who've been part of this program. None of this would be possible without their support and their leadership. And so we want to encourage y'all to host your own phone bank, right? If you want to do one at your house, you want to do one virtually, we got you. We're here to help you, to give you the tools, the resources, the cute graphics next to me, right? We can help you and get you ready and mobilized. And I just want to make another quick pitch, because on Monday, October 14th, we will have a Kamala dial-a-thon, right? So we will have several shifts on Monday to make 1 million calls. So join us then to be able to make that and hit that benchmark. We can't do this alone, and so we need you all. And if you want to join one of these fantastic phone banks that we have almost every single day, please visit the website, go.kamalaharris.com/outforharris. Very simple. That's where you can find all the opportunities that we have available virtually. And you might meet some Broadway stars. You might meet some cool people, even myself or Sam. Anything you want to add here, Sam?
No, I just think that everyone should take these opportunities to get involved. It's super easy. It's super fun. We're truly building a community of folks who are coming together to elect candidates like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who are fighting for equality. And again, just to echo, this is all volunteer-driven and volunteer-led by people across the country. We are so grateful for our super volunteers and our distributed organizing co-chairs, Nick Famolaro and Mackenzie Thomas, who drive so much of this work for us and lead a group of folks that just run an amazing program that has allowed us to talk to so many voters. So
amazing. Thank you, Sam. And next slide. And we're proud to announce that we have a new social media toolkit for everyone to use and to leverage to be able to share some cool graphics, share why they're so excited about the campaign, and to remind the community what's at stake. So I know tomorrow is National Coming Out Day, so we have some graphics there as well. So please leverage these. They're free. They're for you to use. And I'm really excited to be able to have this, because what's really key here is that y'all are our best messengers, right? So please, as you're on social media, as you're scrolling, consider using one of our graphics and share them with your community. Perfect. Next slide. If you have a free weekend, right? If you maybe can take a quick day trip to a battleground state, we need you. We are boots on the ground ready, right? So if you want to organize your own, folks to go carpool to a battleground state, we're here to help, right? If you want to have some family in a battleground state and you want to go canvass or volunteer for the campaign for a couple of days, let us know. Please visit the link that's being shared in the chat. We want to be able to, again, have as many doors here with the campaign as possible. So please join us. We have buses leaving from many different parts across the country, right? DC, New York, they have a number of buses. In the Midwest, there's 2 cities in Illinois that have buses traveling to our battleground states. California, you name it. There's a bus in most major cities, from LA to San Diego, San Francisco, Oakland, Sacramento, you name it. So please join us and consider lending us one of your weekends. Perfect. Next slide. And then to transition, kind of just want to throw out a couple of pitches here, and we'll drop some links in the chat as well to consider joining us and doing some good work from wherever you are. So in the next slide, one, consider hosting a house party. If there's anything that we as folks from the community are really good at, is throwing parties. So throw a party, host an event for your friends and neighbors, and then consider launching an ask right at the end of the party, or maybe have it lead to one of our virtual phone banks. So we have the tools, we got the resources, and so we can help you organize that. We got all the things, and all we need is your help choosing the date, organizing the logistics, and getting people there. And so really, really want to encourage folks to throw a house party. Next slide. Second, host a phone bank. If you want to do one in person or virtually, right? We can help you do that. We need a lot of help. We need a lot of people on the phones, right? We need to retell the vice president's story to folks. We've got a lot of work to do ahead of ourselves, and it's one of the most effective ways to talk to voters. So please join us, consider hosting a phone bank. Next slide. And then, lastly, consider fundraising, right? Fundraising is a little scary. I get it. I've been there. We've all been there. But I promise, it's always easier to raise for someone else and a good cause. And the good cause is this campaign, right? We are a grassroots funded campaign built by small dollar donors from across the country. But I have to be real with you all. We are competing with Trump's mega billionaires, right? They're trying to buy this election. And so we need you. We need you to either throw a house party to help raise some small dollar donations. And so some tactics to consider. We got a little cute one pager for you. Is spend some time calling your friends, right? Texting an ActBlue link that you can create on your own, or host a mini fundraiser, a happy hour. Find your local gay bar and throw an event together. So again, we are a grassroots funded campaign, and yes, we raise historic funds, but we have we are facing some real challenges because of Trump and his mega billionaires. So please consider joining us. Click on one of the links, join the campaign, and we can't do this alone. And just want to thank you all for joining us this evening. And that is a PowerPoint presentation and just kind of sharing with you all about our work here at Out for Harris Walz. Yeah.
Thank you, Caesar. And for those who are joining on social, watching online, you can go to kamalaharris.com/out. If you want to host an event, if you're ready, if you want to host a phone bank and you think you're up for the task, if you think you want to have a grassroots fundraising event, you can indicate that interest there, and Caesar and myself will follow up to get you all of the resources that you need to do that. We promise it is easy. It is fun. Your friends will love it because we got to do this task of getting voters out there to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And just to echo what he said at the beginning, for those, we could not do this with the members of our National Steering Committee of Out for Harris Walz, who help us day in and day out truly execute so much work. We could not do it without the state committee chairs that have stepped forward to organize committees in state. And we cannot do this without volunteers like you at home stepping forward to make phone calls and talk to voters, to go knock on doors and talk to voters. That is what it's going to take, everything we've got to win this election. And so as this call comes to a close, I really just want to end with the fact that this election truly is coming down to the wire, and we need you to get involved. And really just to say thank you to all of you at home who have volunteered, who have made calls, knocked doors. This is truly a people-powered campaign, and we know your work is going to propel us to victory. And to all those who have joined us tonight, who have signed up to volunteer this evening, who are ready to go, welcome in. We are so excited to have you here and to have you a part of our campaign as we fight for more freedoms and fight to ensure Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are in the White House. And I'll just close with my personal story as to why I get involved. Because I became an organizer because of one of the many accomplishments that we fight for on this campaign and how it impacted my family. Because in 2014, my sister, who was diagnosed with breast cancer unexpectedly, and despite the fear and anxiety that came with and caused for her and my family, she had luckily gotten health insurance through the Affordable Care Act just 7 months prior that allowed her to access the care that she needed, that prevented my family from going into extreme debt in order to pay for the treatments that she needed and to get her the care that she deserves. And I share this story because it shows what happens when we elect leaders who want to fight for all of us, like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. The choice in this election could not be more clear. We've heard the other side and their concept of a plan for health care, how they want to take away reproductive freedom from people, and what they would do if they were elected in their plan outlined in Project 2025. So if you haven't yet, I implore you all to get involved. Think about your reason why. Think about what's motivating you and going to propel you in these next 26 days when it is all gas and no brakes. When you show up to make calls, when you go knock doors, what your reason why is, and hold on to that feeling, because these accomplishments we talk about, everything that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have done, those have such impact on people's lives. They've had impacts on yours and mine. And if we send them to the White House, they will continue to fight for all of us. So thank you for joining. If you haven't signed up to volunteer, please consider doing so on the links below or above, depending on where you're calling in from, or text LGBTQ to 30330. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gerardo Ramirez. I'm from Eloy, Arizona, and I'm a trustee and steward for Teamsters Local 104. And I'm a registered Republican. My great-grandfather was a farmer and a migrant worker here in Arizona. And my grandfather on my mother's side came to America in 1956 to work in agriculture on railroads, also known as the Bracero program. I come from a long line of hard workers, and I know firsthand how important unions are for workers and working families. I am here today to support Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz and make sure that everyone in the state of Arizona and across the country knows that Teamster Local 104 of Arizona has proudly endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. Because we know who stands with workers and who doesn't. And I suggest that any other worker, union or non-union, get behind Kamala Harris because she is the leader that will fight for workers and working families. Vice President Kamala Harris has led, alongside President Joe Biden, the most pro-union administration in history. She has been an unwavering champion for workers her entire career. Folks like me, we keep America running. And we deserve a leader who will fight for us. Vice President Harris is committed to workers and making sure we live in a country that works for everyone, not just a few. It is clear for me that if you're for workers and your families, Kamala Harris is the only option in this election. So let's remember, when we fight, we win. Thank you. Now, it is my distinct privilege to introduce a champion of workers and the next President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Thank you to Gerardo. Arizona! Oh my goodness. All right, okay. All right. Thank you all. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Okay, come on. Come on, we got some work to do. We got some work to do. We got some work to do. All right, we got some work to do. Well, let me just say, it is good to be back in Arizona. And thank you all. There are so many. This is an extraordinary group of leaders, and I thank you all for the time that you have taken to be together, for us to have this. I love you back. I want to thank Governor Lewis of the Gila River Indian community and all the elected leaders here today. Representative Gallego, who could not be with us, but Arizona, let's send him to the United States Senate. And let's send former Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez to the United States Congress. And let me say, it means so much to be back with the Gila River Indian community. Last summer, I became the first Vice President of the United States to visit this tribal nation. And I strongly believe that the relationship between tribal nations and the United States is sacred, and that we must honor tribal sovereignty, embrace our trust and treaty obligations, and ensure tribal self-determination. And it is my promise as President of the United States, I will defend those principles always. And before I continue, I will say a few words about Hurricane Milton, which has cut a path of devastation across Florida and follows closely, of course, on the heels of the damage caused by Hurricane Helene to communities across the Southeast. I know, as you do, that our heart goes out to everyone who has been impacted by these storms. Our administration has mobilized thousands of federal personnel across the region to work hand in hand with local and state officials to give folks the help they need. I have spoken with state, local officials, both Republican and Democrat, to let them know we will be with you every step of the way as you recover and rebuild. That is who we are. That is who we are. So moving forward, let me say that Arizona, look, we have just 26 days until Election Day. 26 days. And we are nearing the home stretch. And this will be a very tight race until the very end. And we are the underdog. We are the underdog. So we have some hard work ahead of us, but we like hard work. Hard work is good work. And with your help in 26 days, we will win. We will win. We will win. And y'all might have seen that just last night, Donald Trump officially ruled out any more debates. Now, I think it's a disservice to the voters a pretty weak move. But even if he will not debate, the contrast in this election is already clear. This election is about two very different visions for our nation. One, his, focused on the past, the other, ours, focused on the future. Including being focused on the issues that matter most to working families across America, like bringing down the cost of living, investing in small businesses and entrepreneurs. Do we have any small businesses in the house? Yeah. Bless you. We believe in fighting to protect reproductive freedom. And we will always fight to keep our nation secure and honor our military service members. These and so many others are the issues that matter to you and your families, which is why you have taken the time out of your very busy lives to be here this evening. But that is not what we hear from Donald Trump. We don't hear about these issues. Instead, from Donald Trump, it's the same old tired playbook. He has no plans for how he would address the needs of the American people. He is only focused on himself. Well, folks, it's time to turn the page. It's time to turn the page. And America is ready for a new way forward. And ready for a new, optimistic generation of leadership for our country. Which is why Democrats, Republicans, and independents are supporting our campaign. Because they know we need a president who works for all the American people. All the American people, because we know we have so much more in common than what separates us. And we are exhausted with those who would try and have us as Americans point fingers at each other. We're tired of that. Enough. Enough. And fighting on behalf of the American people has been the story of my entire career. I've only had in my career one client, the people. As a young courtroom prosecutor, I stood up for women and children against predators. As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks, delivered $20 billion for middle-class families who faced foreclosure. I stood up for veterans and students being scammed. Being scammed by the big for-profit colleges. I stood up for workers being cheated out of their wages. I stood up for seniors facing elder abuse, and it is my pledge to you as President of the United States, I will always fight for all the American people. Together, we will build a brighter future for our nation. A future where we build, for example, what I call an opportunity economy, where everyone has the ability to compete and have a real chance to succeed. Under my economic plan, we will bring down the cost of housing. Arizona, you know that's an issue we need to deal with. We will help first-time home buyers with their down payment, with $25,000 down payment assistance. We will help entrepreneurs start and grow small businesses, knowing you are the backbone of America's economy. We will expand health care in a way that makes Medicare cover home health care for seniors. Because we know it's just not right that people have to spend down all their money to qualify for Medicaid to be able to take care of what is basically about dignity when it comes to home health care. It's about dignity. And so part of my plan is to recognize you who are members of what we call the sandwich generation, who are taking care of your young children and your parents at the same time. Knowing what that does in terms of the emotional, the physical, the mental burden that you are carrying, just trying to take care of your family. And we need to have policies in our country that see you and lift you up, knowing it is a matter of dignity and just what is right. We will lower the cost on everything from healthcare to groceries, taking on, for example, the issue of corporate price gouging. I've done it before, and I'm going to do it again. We will give a tax cut to 100 million Americans, including $6,000 during the first year of your child's life to help you be able to buy a crib or a car seat or all the things you need at that critical stage of your child's development. And all of this is to say, I will always put middle-class families first. I come from the middle class. I come from the middle class. And I will never forget where I come from. Now, Donald Trump has a different plan. Just Google Project 2025. And I continue to say, I can't believe they put that in writing. You know, they published it, they bound it, and they handed it out. They're out of their minds. And it is a detailed, dangerous blueprint for what he will do if he is elected president again. Donald Trump will give billionaires and corporations massive tax cuts. Cut Social Security and Medicare is what he would do. And impose what I call a Trump sales tax, a 20% tax on everyday goods and necessities, which will cost, the economists have said, the average American family nearly $4,000 more a year. On top of this, Donald Trump intends to end the Affordable Care Act. Now, Arizona, I was a member of the United States Senate during that time, but during that time, when he was president and kept trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I'm going to tell you about one particular night, which has a direct connection to all of you. So that one night, it was late in the night. They were trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act again, and it required one more vote to keep it intact, and that vote was the late, great John McCain. a great American, a war hero, John McCain. And I'll never forget that night. So we're all standing in the chamber, and we're waiting. And then, you know, in the Senate chamber, there are these big wooden doors. And it was like out of a movie. The wooden doors broke open. And John McCain came walking into the well of the United States Senate and said, "No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't." But Donald Trump is trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act still. And here's the thing. He has no plan to replace it. Oh, you watched the debate. You watched the debate. So remember, he's got, quote, concepts of a plan. Concepts. Okay, so let's think about that. You know, I've said, because it's true, he is an unserious man. And the consequences of him ever being president again are brutally serious. Because think about this, concept of a plan. So he's basically going to threaten the health insurance of 45 million Americans based on a concept. And take us back then to what? To the time when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions? Well, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We're not going back. No, because we will move forward. Because ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom. Like the fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. And we remember how we got here. Donald Trump, when he was president, hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo Roe. And they did as he intended, and now more than 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban, including, right here in Arizona, 3.5 million women. And many of these bans, like the one in this state, have no exceptions even for rape and incest. It is immoral. And I know we all know one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government should not be telling her what to do. Not the government. If she chooses, she'll talk with her priest or her pastor or her rabbi or her imam, but not the government. So Arizona, we need to fight this battle on every front, and in this election, you have the chance on the state level to vote yes on Proposition 139 and protect your right to make your own health care decisions. And then, when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom nationwide, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly. But look, in addition to that, you know, I'm traveling around the country, and across our nation, guys, we are witnessing a full-on attack on hard-won, hard-fought freedoms and rights, fundamental freedoms and rights, like the freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride, and the freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water. A topic that looms large here in Arizona, and I know that topic well. I worked on drought resilience for years and helped secure historic resources for communities across the West to invest in water infrastructure, water recycling, and water storage. And I promise you, as president, I will continue to invest in drought resilience so that communities like those across Arizona have what you need to thrive. So look, so much is on the line in this election, 26 days to go. And this is not 2016 or 2020. The stakes are even higher because remember, a few months ago, the United States Supreme Court told the former president he is effectively immune from whatever he does in office. Now, because you all know, just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. He who has vowed if he were reelected, he'd be a dictator on day one. Who will weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies, and who has called for the, quote, termination of the Constitution of the United States of America. And let us be clear. Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States of America. Never again. Never again. Never again. So it all comes down to this. Generations of Americans before us have led the fight for freedom, and now the baton is in our hands. The baton is now in our hands because we here know what is at stake, and we love our country. We love our country. We love our country. And I do believe one of the highest forms of patriotism and one of the highest forms then of patriotism, of the expression of our love of our country, is to fight for the ideals of our country and to fight to realize the promise of America. So the election is in 26 days. Here in Arizona, early voting has already started statewide. You can cast your ballot today or any day between now and November 5th. So now is the time to make your plan to vote. And if you have received your ballot in the mail, please do not wait. Fill it out today, return it in today. I think some of you have. Because folks, the election is here. The election is here, and we've got to energize and organize and mobilize. And please, let's always remember, your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power. And so, Arizona, I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it?
keep on running, cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Ten Hail Marys, I meditate for practice. Channel 9 News tell me I'm moving backwards. 8 blacks left, death is around the corner. 7 misleading statements about my persona. 6 headlights waving in my direction. Come on. 5-0 asking me what's in my possession. Yeah, I keep running, jumping the aqueducts, fire hydrants and hazardous smoke alarms on the back of us. But mama, don't cry for me, ride for me, try for me, live for me, breathe for me, sing for me, honestly guiding me. I can be more than I gotta be, stole from me, lied to me, nation hypocrisy, code on me, driving me wicked. My spirit inspired me like, yeah. Open correctional gates in high desert. Yeah. Open our mind as we cast away oppression. Open the streets and watch our beliefs. And when they carve my name inside the concrete, I pray it forever reads.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom rot in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running, 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
If I get in there, what you want from me? Is it true? You see, if I get in there, in there.
I had my ups and downs, but I always find the inner strength to pull myself up. I was served.
People dream high in the quiet of the night. You know that I caught it. Bad, bad boy, shiny toy with a price. You know that I bought it. Killing me slow out the window. I'm always waiting for you to be waiting below. Devils roll the dice, angels roll their eyes. What doesn't kill?
Hello, everyone. This is Maya Harris. Thanks so much for inviting me as we all get ready to cheer on my sister for tonight's Univision Town Hall. And thank you all for all the support and love that you've given to my sister. I want to start by wishing everyone a happy Hispanic Heritage Month, because it goes without saying that the contributions of the Latino community to this country are invaluable. And I look forward to hearing Kamala talk about her vision for continuing to advance the community's priorities. The Latino community has always had my sister's back, and I know that Kamala has yours. And that's because of the values that we share, values that we grew up with, and how we were raised. Over the past few weeks, I've been traveling all around the country helping voters get to know Kamala, and as I've been out there talking to people, I've often said that to really know who Kamala is to know our mother, Shamala Gopalan Harris, who we of course called Mommy. Some of you may know our mother left India, the only country she'd ever known, as a teenager to pursue her education in the United States. She came here by herself, which was virtually unheard of in 1958, but when she got here, she found a community that embraced her. Well, Mommy raised Kamala and me to understand through word and deed that we all have so much more in common than what separates us, that we all want the same things for our children, for our families, for our communities, and that we can have different histories and different struggles and different perspectives, but the thing that binds us all together is a desire to be free, to fulfill our God-given potential. Kamala's entire life has been about fighting for each of us to have that freedom. Fighting to build a thriving, inclusive democracy where no matter where you are from, what you look like, where you come from, what neighborhood you live in, the language you speak, your accent, the religious practice that you may have, you all have opportunities that you deserve. Fighting for an America where we recognize that our differences are not a weakness, they're our greatest strength. And fighting for an America where we grow our economy by investing in the middle class. Because you see, we grew up in a middle class community. And we were raised to believe that every hardworking American should not only be able to find a good paying job, buy a home, or start a business. You should be able to build wealth and have something to pass on to your children. As Kamala says, to not just get by, but get ahead. That's who my sister is. That's who she's always been. And then there's Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, two people looking out for themselves, who'd rather give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations than give every American an opportunity to succeed, who think they're more qualified than women to make decisions about our health, our families, and our futures, who'd rather divide this country than unite it because they know that when the people come together, we have the power. So listen, we only have 26 days until Election Day. 26 days to make sure that people are registered and voting in numbers so overwhelming that there's no doubt about where the people stand. And I know everyone watching is already doing so much. And yes, tonight I am asking you to dig deeper and do some more, because we need to understand that even though our momentum is growing, Kamala is still the underdog in this race, and we cannot take anything for granted. This race is very, very close, and it will take all of us to get over the finish line. So your work, your individual effort, could be the margin of victory in your precinct. Your collective work can win this election. So I loved seeing Michelle Obama on the convention stage echoing another one of our mother's lessons. Don't wait to be asked, she said. Do something. And tonight, I'm going to add, for these next 26 days, it's not enough to just do something. We all need to do everything that we can. That is how we're going to make Kamala Harris the next president of the United States. So thank you all.
You contrast all that Kamala Harris wants to do for all of us with Donald Trump. We know that Donald Trump doesn't care about us. He only cares about himself and enacting retribution if he gets back into the White House. We know how dangerous his plans are. Economists have called his plans for the economy an inflation bomb. We also know that Trump's Project 2025 wants to end Social Security and Medicare, which is critically important to our communities. We also know his plan for immigration. While Kamala Harris has a sensible plan, she has said many times we can both have a secure border and have a humane immigration system. Donald Trump has talked solely about his mass deportation plan, something similar to what the Eisenhower administration created in the 1950s, where 60% of the people deported were U.S. citizens. His Project 2025 presents that kind of danger for all of us.
1, 2, 3, 4. Saludos mi gente, yo soy Mireya Ramos. We have Jill Peacock on the keys, Trevor Turla on trombone, Cristian Rodriguez on the congas. We're so thrilled to be representing our communities. Cannot wait for this election, this historic one. Now more than ever, we need love. We need people to come together. A leader that represents love. Hope you enjoy this music.